Hi, good morning, everyone. It's wonderful every year to be part of the ARC forum. We bring in, and we are able to bring in a lot of data that we collect about AI adoption to this forum, which is probably one of the best forums to talk about when it comes to industrialization, manufacturing, and the use of technologies in that space. So I'm Namita Jain. I'm a director of NASSCOM Insights, which is the research arm of NASSCOM. For those of you who probably don't know NASSCOM, in a nutshell, it's a trade body that represents the entire technology industry of India. And by technology, we can practically say almost every company today, because every company is wanting to be a tech and a digital company. With that, quickly getting into our discussion, I know I have about 20 minutes of time with you. What we'll try to do is a little bit of building on, the video that we just saw. Fantastic three things that came out. One, the real indispensability or the rising indispensability of AI in the manufacturing field. Second, how do we make it a lot more sustainable? And is that a focus for manufacturing companies? And third, where is the real use case? Is there ROI? Is there impact? What is the state of adoption today? Those are really the three things I think I'll be able to share with you today. So quickly, let me get started. Just a little bit of a background building. I'm sure all of you have seen that. But I think it's very interesting to put into perspective what is manufacturing going through today. And if I were to say there's one sector that's literally, or one huge industry segment that is literally topsy-turvy since almost 2nd April, it is probably this sector, which is hit by all kinds of volatility in terms of supply chains, tariff uncertainty, policy uncertainty. So how do you procure? How do you source? What happens to your existing, stable, established supply chains, etc., and all the optimization that has been done over the years, right? All of that seems to be getting appended at the same time. And that has resulted in how organizations just do what they do, which is procure and produce and distribute, right? So it's interesting, some data points that I was looking up to explain what is happening in manufacturing today. If you just notice a little bit of betterment because companies across the world were expecting this whole tariff war to settle down. It seems to have abated a little bit, but not completely gone, right? It's playing out very differentially across the US, across other developed markets and the Europe, very, very differentially. And it's interesting how US companies are sitting on a lot of input and output inventories, which probably will have an impact, as everybody is expecting, on what happens in H2. Will there be more procurement? Will more products come out? Will it slow down as a result of what's already happened in terms of inventory blowups? And as a result, one interesting statistic, which is the fourth one, that lowest number of manufacturers, and this also kind of surprised me while I was looking at it, but this is an S&P data, lowest number of manufacturers are putting in fresh money in terms of capacity expansion or hiring diverse kinds of people. And that has a very interesting bearing on what I'm going to show you about AI, because AI, as we just saw, is all about a lot of cost upfront. And it takes a while for any organization, this is not true for manufacturing, but for any organization to figure out where is the optimal spend on AI and how do you get to that quickly. And one of our research findings from this year's global survey, which we do every year to get a pulse check in the beginning of the year as to where are global companies going to spend, is that about 44% of global manufacturers expect demand to either decline or stay just about flat. This was done before April. I'm sure 45% would have become 60%, 70% by now. But all of that said and done, let's say in 5 years from now, 2030 or so, where do we expect manufacturing to be? I think nobody here would debate that manufacturing would be a lot more technology driven. It will be a lot more digitally driven, transformed. It will be a lot more of confluence of AI, digital twins, IoT, edge, and robotics, automation, all put together. And at the base of all of that, as we saw the video before us, is data and the overall data fabric that provides that connectedness. And that data, in order to make sense out of all of that data, we think AI is going to be very, very crucial. So just some numbers to throw light on that, but here's where that survey that I spoke about, the global survey, this is what it revealed about manufacturing companies. Now, just to give you a little bit of a brief, we survey about 500, 600 global large and mid-sized companies across all sectors. So I would have cuts for healthcare, pharma, etc. We got about 90 manufacturing companies across process as well as discrete, automotive, semicons, electronics, the other industrial segments, all of them to participate. And it was interesting, I wanted to highlight how the spend is positioned. So just beginning from the immediate left-hand side, what's happening to the total tech spend? The first point, 66% of manufacturing companies said that they plan to increase spend in 2025. This number will definitely stand downward corrected now in the post-tariff scenario because tech spend is taking a hit. And for the first time since last year, this survey has also revealed something very interesting. Tech, digital, AI. These three kinds of spends are not moving together. They are not, their movement, whether the increase or the decrease, is not that strongly correlated as it used to be pre-Gen AI, which is a very interesting find for us. So tech spend possibly flattish to a little lower compared to last year. If you look at digital spend, this was an interesting number. We've been doing this study for the last 6 years. 77% of manufacturing companies would spend up to 50% of their tech budget. This number itself has gone from lower 40s in the last couple of, I think 3 years or 4 years back to 77%. That itself is a significant jump for us. When it comes to manufacturing organizations taking their tech budgets higher, digital budgets higher as a percentage of tech. But they want to increase that spend in 25 and look at the expectations for 2030. You just flip point number 2 and see point number 4. Just about 23% companies last year spent over 50%. That's going to, or that's expected to double by 2030. And in the next slide, we'll see how that distribution of digital spend is changing across some of the key technologies, whether it's AI, IoT, cloud, whatever it is. But that's an interesting trend that manufacturing companies expect to happen. Now, how does that translate to AI spend? Now, AI spend we are taking as part of the digital budget. So, digital budget expected to rise, has continued to rise, even if tech budgets are slower. AI spend. A lot of manufacturing companies do not spend on AI compared to what their other peers spend. And now when I say other peers, it's industries. Obviously, it's not fair to compare a manufacturing company with a services company. But just about 15% spend over 20%. This average is almost 2.5x overall across the industry. So manufacturing companies are definitely spending a lot less on AI. Success with AI. Just about 70% of the manufacturers say that 20% of their AI spend was somewhat successful, which means there was some ROI. But remember, a lot of the spend is on very small pilots that have just made into production. we'll see that later, that the POC to production paralysis is a lot higher in manufacturing than some of the other sectors. So this number that 20% of AI projects are giving us some impact also needs to be taken with a little bit of salt as to where is the return coming from. But they are hopeful that they will increase the spend in 2025. What that means for agentic, we did the study just, we released a study just last week, and there again we did the global survey. And what you're seeing is the cut of manufacturing. About 10 to 20% of AI spend could be dedicated to agents, but the number of manufacturing companies who expect to do that is very low. It's just about 15 to 17%. So with agentic, manufacturing companies are a lot less certain compared to a lot of other sectors, is what came out. 40% of manufacturers claim agentic AI will disrupt them. Now see that compared to 53% across the board. So the sense of disruption is also probably not being seen as an urgency in manufacturing organizations. And across the board, what we ask them is, what kind of agentic work are you doing? Is it task-focused, process-focused, functional, cross-functional, across the supply chains and all? Obviously, most companies are at task and process, and nobody is mature enough when it comes to the type of agents that they are applying. But here is where the conundrum from the last video comes, which is what is happening to generative AI? Because if generative AI is something that is not well understood, agents may not fructify that well. Sorry, just a couple of things. We think that if digital to AI shift has to happen, there needs to be a lot more work at the foundation, which is the IT-OT integration. And that becomes extremely crucial, even more for manufacturing companies, because of the level of fragmentation that can be seen across the operations. And obviously, the importance of Gen AI. I'll quickly move. So yeah, this is an interesting slide. How are things changing? And this is very consistent across most segments. If you look at the first part, the AI spend is changing. We said if you have 100 pennies across digital budget, how are you allocating it across all the digital technologies that you use within your organization? Obviously, organizations don't make technology decisions like this, but we just wanted to know what is priority. And it's interesting to see that AI ML is on the rise. This is consistent with all sectors. What's also interesting to see is cloud and edge. 21% was the spend by manufacturers last year. This is the highest amount of spend. And even though it's come down to 16%, it's the highest amount across sectors. That's something telling for us. There's a lot more focus still on some of the base level technologies. Cloud and obviously edge to a small portion, but that is still very important compared to some of the other sectors. And obviously the others are not very surprising, but just wanted to highlight that AI ML spend is increasing. Where is the spend going? The first one, process and inventory optimization. This continues to be the most important use case. We asked this with respect to one, AI overall, and then from the perspective of process automation using agents. And across both kinds of applications, we found that process and inventory optimization is an area of most importance. Then supply chain, safety monitoring, remote monitoring, monitoring with agents in hazardous situations where humans cannot go. Predictive maintenance, production scheduling, etc. And then finally, the integration of robotics using autonomous AI agents, etc. Now, this is where I wanted to connect it back to the video. I think the conversation with AI is quickly shifting, and that's also a lot of hype. In most of the conversations today that we do, it's almost like companies are like, Gen AI is over, it's all about agentic AI. But the fact is that if Gen AI is not well understood and implemented and fine-tuned for an enterprise usage, it's very highly likely that agentic AI will not give results. And it'll again be a failed set of experiments. The conversation in generative AI, just as the video mentioned, is also shifting to a lot of small language models. So what I wanted to highlight here is how are companies doing when it comes to Gen AI. And this is true for manufacturing. So I did not do a separate cut because there's not much of a difference that came out between sectors. If you look at two white bars with red borders, this is where organizations are when it comes to dealing with models. We say either you should be able to fine-tune large language models or multimodal models or large action models, whatever that might be, to an enterprise use case. But lately, when it comes to agents, a lot of conversation is happening around how do we do small language models that are very focused, thematic, that solve a particular problem because they use data very specific to that problem. And a lot of manufacturing setups are very, very unique in the kind of data they produce. So it's not always effective to take a large model and then give it that data and train the model and expect a high level of accuracy out of it. So a lot of conversation has shifted to small language models, and companies are much less, I would say, mature or comfortable with SLMs. Just about 40% want or are trying to build SLMs. How successful, we don't know that. But here the point to impress is that it's very important to have comfort level with language models that are applicable to an enterprise use case to make agents work. So generative AI, if we think about the AI technologies and the evolution history, I think the predictive AI, the generative AI, and now agents, I think agents are trying to combine both. So it's important for organizations to figure out where does analytics work, where does predictive AI give the kind of results that are required, and where is generative AI really needed. Obviously, that is why things are stuck at basically the task level and some level of process automation with a lot of human in the loop. Now, that was a global picture for you. So just to summarize it, manufacturing companies trying to improve their AI spend, but not comparative to cross-industry. They're trying to do agents, but their comfort level with generative AI is comparatively low. How does that picture translate or change when we talk about Indian manufacturing companies? Because we do both kinds of cuts. In this particular study is an in-depth look at all Indian sectors and how do they adopt AI and what is their level of maturity. And we took AI, designed it around 9 dimensions from strategy and impact, investment, and so on, to sustainability. What that means is, what is your holistic AI strategy? How much do you invest? What kind of teams, talent, skills? What is the project management methodology around AI? What kind of AI POCs, production use cases, generative AI POCs, production use cases? What is the level of tech foundation, whether it comes to data, cloud, readiness that is available? And effectively, is AI actually a sustainability game or not? Or is it being thought of from that perspective? And if the red circle or the red set of numbers are manufacturing scores and overall India. So overall India, we did this in 2022 first time, then 24. Overall India was 2.45 on a scale of 4. We weigh these dimensions in all possible ways, depending on the circumstances, how AI has moved as a technology, what is more important, what is less important, and so on and so forth. So the 2.45 is just moved to 2.47 across the board. That number itself is a very telling number, that we are still very, very experimental as a set of industries. Manufacturing is actually 2.67. This came out as the best sector for us in our study, and it surprised everyone as to what is happening in manufacturing, which is not happening in a BFSI or a retail. We realized that some bit of this analysis gave higher numbers because there were a lot of automotive companies who had responded. So I think that kind of, made it a lot higher. But if I just quickly go through some of the interesting trends, where did manufacturing shine when it comes to India? Um, having a very thoughtful strategy. If I can say, if I can summarize this chart in one sentence, a lot of strategy on paper, the right elements that are being thought through, some investments coming in, also executive level interest and intention to have the right kind of teams, talent. But where is it not picking up? It's not picking up. If you look at the third bar from the bottom, this is about generative AI. I'll give you the number around AI, overall AI. Just about 50% of manufacturing companies said they have identified AI use cases. Not generative, not agentic, just AI overall. And just about 23% had moved to POCs, 11% were productionizing POCs. And that is far, far below the 62% industry average that had identified use cases, 55% moving to POCs, 37% doing production level AI. So definitely manufacturing companies are struggling a lot with finding the right kind of use cases to move to. But otherwise, when it comes to data readiness, cloud readiness, the ability to put teams, etc., it's literally surprised us that they scored a lot better than some of the other sectors we were expecting to come up with. Where are the real challenges? I think the one thing that if you look at the bars, which are 94%, limited or no measurable ROI, 92%, 88% down here, which is lack of skills. I think some of those very specific manufacturing related challenges came out strongly. And that's why in the beginning, I'd started with saying that we think IT-OT integration is very crucial to get the whole focus on AI moving forward. So that's pretty much all I had in terms of discussions about what is happening with AI in manufacturing at a global scale and at the India scale. I don't think in India we are too divorced from what is happening globally, which is a lot of strong intent, but struggling with moving AI beyond a POC level. Thank you so much.
For your very data-driven presentation.